First contact's bitter taste. The crystalline spires of the Archean vessel gleamed against the backdrop of Europa's ice-covered ocean, its impossible geometries making Commander Victoria Nash's eyes water. Standing on the bridge of the UVS horizon, she fought to keep her expression neutral as the alien ship's captain materialized on their main view screen, a being composed of shifting planes of light and mathematical precision. How quaint! The alien captain's thoughts resonated directly in their minds, tripping with amusement, a species still dependent on physical matter for communication. I am High Commander Ixel of the Archean Collective. We've been observing your fumbling attempts at faster-than-light travel with great entertainment. Nash's jaw tightened, but she maintained her diplomatic composure. At 43, she'd spent her entire career preparing for first contact, though nothing could have prepared her for this level of condescension. I am Commander Victoria Nash of the United Earth Ship Horizon. We seek peaceful dialogue and cultural exchange. Crystalline laughter echoed through their minds. Cultural exchange. What could you possibly offer beings who transcended physical form millennia ago? Your most advanced quantum theories are equivalent to a child's first attempts at arithmetic. Behind Nash, Lieutenant Rajesh Patil quietly ran deep scans of the Archean vessel, his dark eyes focused intently on his holographic displays. Dr. Diana Fleming, their lead physicist, stood at her own station, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun, as she analyzed the incoming data with barely concealed fascination. Perhaps, Nash responded carefully, different perspectives could offer unexpected insights. Our approach to quantum mechanics uses crude manipulations of space-time that we mastered before your species discovered fire, Ixel interrupted. Though I suppose we shouldn't expect more from beings still trapped in linear time and three-dimensional space. Your physical forms are so limiting. For the next hour, the Archeans continued their mockery, dismissing every human achievement as primitive entertainment. They spoke of humanity as one might discuss amusing pets, occasionally capable of surprising tricks, but ultimately insignificant. But while Ixel reveled in their superiority, something in the data caught Dr. Fleming's attention. Her fingers flew across her console, eyes widening as patterns emerged in the readings. Lieutenant Patil noticed too, shooting her meaningful glances as they gathered more information from their arrogant visitors. We will permit your species limited access to our outer trading outposts, Ixel finally declared. Perhaps in a few millennia, you'll evolve enough to be of use. Do try not to damage anything with your crude physical forms. After the transmission ended, Nash turned to her crew. Report. Commander, Fleming's voice trembled with excitement. Their arrogance made them careless. They never bothered to mask their dimensional signatures. The data we've gathered, there's something fundamental they're completely missing. Explain. They're using brute force to tear through space-time. Fleming continued, pulling up complex mathematical models on the main screen. Yes, their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also inefficient, like using a sledgehammer to drive in a nail. There's an underlying pattern to dimensional travel that they're blind to, probably because they've been doing it their way for so long. Nash leaned forward, studying the swirling equations. Can you elaborate? The physical universe isn't just three-dimensional space plus time, Fleming explained. It's more like a fabric with countless layers. The Archeans punch through these layers with raw power, but these readings suggest there might be a way to slit between them instead. Natural intersection points where the barriers between dimensions are thinner. Like finding the seams in reality itself, Patil added, his own displays showing similar patterns. Exactly, Fleming nodded. And because they're so focused on their brute force approach, they've never noticed these intersection points. Their supposed mastery of higher dimensions is like someone claiming to be a master tailor while ignoring the actual seams in the fabric. Nash allowed herself a small smile. How long would it take to develop this theory? Months, maybe years, Fleming admitted. But Commander, if we're right, we could revolutionize dimensional travel. We could develop technology that makes their methods look as primitive as they claim ours to be. Nash turned to gaze at the Arxian vessel, its crystalline form still radiating smug superiority. Send all this data to Earth Defense Command, highest priority. The Arxians think we're primitive animals fumbling in the dark. Let's show them how dangerous it can be to underestimate humanity. As the Horizon began its journey home, Nash reflected on the encounter. The Arxians' mockery had stung, but they had given humanity something far more valuable than their respect. They had given them motivation. In their arrogance, they had revealed secrets they didn't even know they possessed. Set course for Earth, maximum speed, she ordered. We have work to do. The Horizon's quantum drives hummed to life, carrying them back toward Earth. But this time, they weren't just carrying data. They were carrying the seeds of a revolution that would shake the foundations of dimensional physics itself. The Arxians had dismissed humanity as primitive beings bound by physical forms, but they would soon learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology, but in their ability to see possibilities where others saw limitations. The game was about to change, and the Arxians didn't even know they were playing. The Hidden Gateway. 6 months after humanity's first contact with the Arxians, Dr. Diana Fleming stood in a facility carved deep beneath the Antarctic ice, staring at equations that defied conventional physics. The massive underground complex, designated Project Threshold, hummed with energy as experimental equipment probed the boundaries between dimensions. Run the simulation again, she instructed her team, watching as holographic displays filled the air around them. The latest tests showed reality itself seeming to ripple, like watching waves pass through water, except these waves moved through the fabric of space-time itself. Dr. Marcus Sullivan, their theoretical physicist recruited from Oxford, manipulated the controls with practiced precision. At 35, he had already revolutionized quantum mechanics twice. But this project dwarfed anything he'd previously attempted. Dimensional intersection point holding stable at 99.3% probability, he reported, his British accent clipped with concentration. The facility's director, Admiral James Chen, watched from the observation deck above. After the UES Horizon's encounter with the Arxians, Earth's governments had united behind this project with unprecedented speed and resources. The aliens' mockery had wounded humanity's pride, but more importantly, it had revealed a crucial weakness in their supposedly superior understanding of the universe. The Arxians aren't wrong about their technological superiority, Fleming explained to the Admiral, gesturing at the swirling mathematical models. But they're like someone who's mastered swimming without ever realizing that boats exist. They're so focused on forcing their way through dimensions that they've never noticed the natural gateways between them. Sullivan pulled up another display, showing the complex network of dimensional intersections they'd mapped. These points exist everywhere in space-time, Admiral. They're like cosmic ley lines, places where the barriers between dimensions naturally thin. The Arxians burn massive amounts of energy punching through reality, but we found ways to simply step through these natural doorways. How soon until we can build a prototype? Chen asked, watching as another simulation showed a test object successfully passing between dimensional planes. The principles are sound, Fleming replied. We've already achieved stable transitions with quantum-scale particles. Scaling up to something large enough for practical use is our next challenge. Their discussion was interrupted by a priority alert from their long-range sensing array. Lieutenant Patel, who had transferred from the Horizon to head their monitoring division, rushed into the room. Dr. Admiral, you need to see this. The main display shifted to show a region of space near the edge of Arxian territory. Something was wrong with the image, as if reality itself was bleeding at the edges. We detected this distortion 3 hours ago, Patel explained. It's growing exponentially, and the Arxians' attempts to contain it seem to be making it worse. Fleming studied the readings, her expression growing increasingly troubled. They're trying to brute force their way through it like they always do, but she manipulated the display, highlighting patterns in the data. This isn't just a dimensional anomaly. It's as if something is systematically unraveling the laws of physics in that region. Could this be a natural phenomenon? Chen asked. No, Sullivan shook his head. These patterns are too orderly, too purposeful. Something intelligent is causing this, something that understands dimensions in ways even the Arxens don't. How long until it reaches their core worlds? At current expansion rates, Patel consulted his data, less than 6 months. If it maintains this pattern, it'll reach Earth in 8. Chen's expression hardened. Then we don't have 6 months to perfect this technology. We need a working prototype now. Fleming shared a look with Sullivan. They both knew what rushing this kind of research could mean, but they also knew they had no choice. We'll need to pull in resources from every major physics lab on Earth, she said, and we'll need to take risks we wouldn't normally consider acceptable. Whatever you need, Chen promised. Earth Defense Command has already approved unlimited emergency funding. As the others left to begin preparations, Fleming remained in the lab, studying the dimensional intersection map they'd created. The Arxians' arrogance had prevented them from seeing these patterns, but now something far worse than arrogance was coming. Something that moved through dimensions as easily as humans move through air. She pulled up the latest designs for their prototype vessel, designated the UES Starweaver. Unlike the crystalline ships of the Arxians, this one would be built around principles of dimensional harmony rather than brute force. Its hull would incorporate materials specifically engineered to resonate with the natural frequency of dimensional boundaries. You're still here. Sullivan's voice made her jump. He handed her a cup of coffee, settling into the chair beside her. Thinking about what's coming. Wondering if we'll be ready, she admitted. The Arxians have had thousands of years to perfect their technology, and we're trying to leap beyond them in months. That's exactly why we might succeed, Sullivan argued. They're locked into their way of thinking. All their experience, all their advancement, it's become a cage. We're starting fresh, seeing things they've been blind to for millennia. A notification flashed on their screens, another message from the Arxian trade outpost. Ever since the anomaly had appeared, their tone had grown increasingly less condescending. Their latest communique actually requested technical consultation with human scientists, though they couldn't quite bring themselves to ask for help directly. They're scared, Fleming realized. Whatever this thing is, it's completely outside their experience. Good, Sullivan said grimly. Fear might finally make them willing to listen. Deep beneath the ice, the prototype Starweaver began to take shape. Its design violated dozens of principles the Arxians considered fundamental to dimensional travel, yet every simulation showed it working more efficiently than anything they'd built. While they forced their way through the walls of reality, humanity had found the doors. But time was running out. The anomaly continued to grow, consuming Arxian outposts one by one. Their mighty ships, capable of tearing holes in space-time, proved useless against something that seemed to exist in all dimensions simultaneously. Their desperate attempts to stop it only seemed to make it stronger, as if it fed on their brute force manipulation of dimensional energy. Fleming worked through the night, fueled by coffee and determination. The equations danced before her tired eyes, but each iteration brought them closer to success. The Arxians had called humanity primitive, but they had never understood a simple truth. Sometimes the most profound discoveries come from seeing with fresh eyes. As she finally left the lab in the early hours of the morning, she paused to watch the Starweaver through the observation window. Its hull seemed to shift and flow, even when standing still, as if it already existed partially in other dimensions. The Arxians had built their ships to conquer dimensional barriers. Humanity had built one to work in harmony with them. Status report. Admiral Chen's voice came through the intercom. Final calibrations are underway. Fleming responded. We'll be ready for the first full-scale test in 72 hours. Make it 48, Chen ordered. Long-range sensors show the anomaly is accelerating. Fleming nodded, knowing that somewhere out there, an incomprehensible force was methodically unmaking reality itself. The Arxians' mighty civilization was facing extinction, and humanity's supposedly primitive understanding of physics might be the only thing that could save them. 48 hours, she confirmed, already mentally recalculating test sequences. Let's hope that's enough time. The Starweaver loomed before her, its impossible geometry a testament to human ingenuity. Soon, they would learn if their theory about dimensional intersection points was correct. And if it wasn't, well, they probably wouldn't survive long enough to regret being wrong. The looming shadow. The Arxian emergency broadcast cut through all frequencies, its crystalline tones now sharp with fear rather than their usual condescension. High Commander Ixal's form flickered on screens across the Project Threshold facility, their once perfect geometric pattern showing signs of instability. To all sentient species in the local sector, Ixal's message resonated with unprecedented urgency. We face an extinction-level threat. 3 more of our outer colonies have gone silent. The dimensional anomaly defies all known physics. We request immediate consultation with all races possessing dimensional travel capability. Admiral Chen stood in the facility's command center, watching the message repeat. Around him, dozens of holographic screens showed the steady advance of the anomaly. It moved like a wave of unreality, leaving nothing but twisted spacetime in its wake. The mighty Arxian defense fleets had proven worse than useless. Their attempts to fight it had only accelerated its growth. They're finally asking for help, Lieutenant Patil noted, his voice heavy with irony. Though they still can't quite bring themselves to say it directly. Pride is a hard thing to swallow, Dr. Fleming responded, not looking up from her calculations. The Starweaver's first test launch was less than 24 hours away, and every moment counted. Especially when you've spent millennia believing you're the pinnacle of evolution. The facility shuddered as another power surge ran through the prototype ship's dimensional core. Dr. Sullivan's voice came through the intercom, tense but controlled. The resonance patterns are holding stable at 97%. We're getting some unusual feedback from the intersection points, but nothing outside predicted parameters. Chen turned to Fleming. Will we be ready in time? Before she could answer, every alarm in the facility began blaring simultaneously. The main display showed a massive spike in dimensional energy from the anomaly. The wave of unreality had just consumed an entire Arxian core world in seconds. New data coming in, Patil reported, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. The Arxians tried to establish a dimensional barrier around their planet. The anomaly, it didn't just break through. It used their own barrier to amplify itself, like it's learning from every attempt to stop it. Fleming studied the readings, her face pale. It's not just learning. It's evolving, adapting to each new dimensional frequency they throw at it. The more they fight it with their brute force approach, the stronger it becomes. Then we launch now, Chen decided. Ready or not? Sir, Sullivan's protest came through the speakers. We haven't completed the final safety protocols. The dimensional resonance cold could tear the ship apart. Fleming finished. But if we wait, there won't be anything left to save. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The Starweaver's sleek form rose from its cradle deep beneath the Antarctic ice, its hull already seeming to exist partially out of phase with normal spacetime. Unlike the crystalline geometries of Arxian ships, its surface flowed like liquid metal, adapting to the natural currents of dimensional energy. Commander Victoria Nash stood on the bridge, having been recalled from the horizon to lead this mission. Her crew was small, just 12 people, including Fleming and Sullivan. They couldn't risk more lives on an untested technology. Final systems check complete, Sullivan reported from his station. Dimensional resonance matrix is as stable as it's going to get. Core is operating at 94% efficiency. That'll have to do, Nash replied, settling into the command chair. All stations, prepare for dimensional transition. Dr. Fleming, you have the coordinates. Fleming nodded, her hands moving across her console with practiced precision. I've mapped out a series of intersection points that should let us approach the anomaly without alerting it to our presence. Assuming our theories about natural dimensional gateways are correct. And if they're not, Patil asked from Tactical. Then we'll be scattered across 14 dimensions, Sullivan answered grimly. But at least it'll be quick. Nash allowed herself a small smile. Well, let's try to avoid that. All hands, secure for transition. Dr. Fleming, begin the sequence. The Starweaver's engines hummed to life, but instead of the violent tear in spacetime that characterized Arxian dimensional travel, reality seemed to gently fold around them. Through the view screen, they watched as the fabric of space itself rippled like silk in a breeze. First intersection point identified, Fleming reported. Resonance patterns holding steady, beginning transition in 3, 2, 1. The universe shifted. There was no sensation of movement, no violent displacement of energy. One moment they were in normal space, and the next they were somewhere else. The view screen showed impossible colors and geometric patterns that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. Transition successful, Sullivan announced, his voice tight with controlled excitement. We're operating at 15% of the power expenditure an Arxian ship would require for the same movement. And the dimensional wake is negligible. We're practically invisible to standard sensors. Nash nodded, but before she could respond, a priority signal cut through their communications. Another Arxian world had gone silent, this one less than a light-year from Earth. The anomaly was accelerating, growing exponentially with each victory. Plot a course through the intersection points, Nash ordered. We need to reach that thing before it hits any more populated systems. As the Starweaver moved through the dimensional boundaries, they received constant updates from Earth. The Arxians had abandoned their defensive positions, their mighty fleets retreating in disarray. Their weapons, capable of reshaping reality itself, had proven worse than useless against something that seemed to exist in all dimensions simultaneously. Getting our first direct readings of the anomaly, Patil reported. Sir, these numbers can't be right. It's not just manipulating dimensions, it's creating new ones, rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in its wake. Fleming studied the data, her expression a mix of horror and fascination. It's not random. There's a pattern here, a purpose. This isn't some natural phenomenon. It's a weapon. Someone or something is systematically unmaking reality itself. Through the view screen, they could see it now, a writhing mass of impossible geometries that hurt the mind to look at directly. Reality bent and twisted around it, stars disappearing into its depths while others appeared where none had existed before. Multiple Arxian vessels detected, Patil announced. They're charging their dimensional drives. They're going to try to establish another barrier. No. Fleming's shout startled everyone on the bridge. If they do that, they'll just make it stronger. We need to. Her words were cut off as space itself seemed to scream. The Arxian ships vanished in a burst of dimensional energy that their sensors couldn't even process. The anomaly pulsed, growing visibly larger. New contact. Patil's voice was barely a whisper. Something's emerging from the anomaly. Something big. The view screen shifted, showing a vast shape moving through the twisted spacetime. It dwarfed the Starweaver like a galaxy dwarfs a planet, its form constantly shifting between states of matter that shouldn't exist. What is that thing? Nash demanded. If I had to guess, Fleming replied, her voice steady despite her pale face, I'd say we're about to meet the beings that exist in the spaces between dimensions, and I don't think they appreciate what the Arxians have been doing to their home. The shape continued to emerge, and as it did, they realized that humanity's first test of their revolutionary dimensional drive had just become a first contact situation of an entirely different kind. The Arxians had mocked humanity for being primitive. Now, both species were about to learn what it truly meant to be outmatched. Beyond the veil, the bridge of the UVS Starweaver fell silent as the vast entity continued to emerge from the dimensional rift. Its form defied comprehension, a constantly shifting mass of geometries that existed in more dimensions than the human mind could process. Looking at it directly caused immediate disorientation, forcing the crew to rely on filtered sensor readings. Multiple dimensional signatures detected, Lieutenant Puddle reported, his voice tight with controlled tension. It's operating on at least 20 different dimensional planes simultaneously. Our sensors can only interpret about half of them. Dr. Fleming worked furiously at her station, analyzing the readings. The entity isn't just moving through dimensions, it's generating them, creating pocket universes with every movement. The Arxian's dimensional drives must have been like constant explosions in its native realm. Commander Nash gripped her command chair as reality rippled around them. Can we communicate with it? I'm detecting patterns in the dimensional fluctuations, Dr. Sullivan answered. They're complex, but there's definitely a structure. It might be trying to communicate already, just not in any way we'd recognize as language. Before they could act on this insight, space twisted violently. 3 Arxian battlecruisers emerged from hyperspace, their crystalline forms blazing with energy. High Commander Ixel's voice cut through their communications. Primitive humans, withdraw immediately. This is beyond your limited understanding. We will handle this threat with appropriate force. Nash hit her comm button. Ixel, wait. Your weapons will only make it stronger. We've analyzed the patterns. It's responding to your dimensional manipulation. Every time you attack, you're just. The Arxian ships opened fire, unleashing beams of pure dimensional energy at the entity. For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then the entity shifted. The energy beams didn't just fail to harm it. They were absorbed, integrated, transformed. The entity pulsed, growing larger, its impossible form becoming even more complex. Dimensional surge detected, Patel shouted. It's redirecting their attack energy through multiple planes of existence. The feedback is, the Arxian ships vanished, not destroyed, simply erased from reality, as if they had never existed. In their place was nothing but twisted space, dimensions folded in on themselves like origami made of reality. My God, Sullivan whispered. It didn't just destroy them. It rewrote the dimensional coordinates of that entire section of space. They literally never existed in this region of reality. Nash turned to Fleming. Options. Fleming's hands flew across her console, correlating data. We're still here because we're not using brute force dimensional travel. Our ship works with the natural intersection points. We're essentially swimming with the current while the Arxians were trying to dam a river. Can we use that? Find a way to communicate? Maybe. Fleming pulled up new calculations. If we can match our dimensional resonance to its natural frequency. Lieutenant Patel, can you isolate the base pattern of its dimensional shifts? Working on it. Patel's fingers danced across holographic controls. There's a recurring sequence in the lower dimensional bands. If we could. Another violent surge of energy interrupted him. The entity was moving again, its vast form stretching across multiple planes of existence. Through their filtered view screen, they could see more Arxian worlds in its path, billions of lives about to be erased from reality. Dr. Fleming, Nash's voice was steady despite the impossible situation. Whatever you're going to try, do it now. Fleming nodded, her face set with determination. Diverting power to the dimensional resonance matrix. Dr. Sullivan, prepare to modulate our field frequency to match the pattern Lieutenant Patel identified. We're going to try to. Well, basically, we're going to try to sing in its language. And if we hit the wrong note? Sullivan asked. Then we join the Arxians in never having existed. Fleming's hands moved across her controls. Beginning resonance sequence in 3, 2, 1. The Starweaver's experimental drive hummed to life, but instead of forcing its way through dimensions, it began to vibrate in harmony with the space around it. Reality rippled, but gently like waves spreading across a pond. The entity paused in its advance, its impossible form shifting in what might have been curiosity. It's responding, Paddle reported. The dimensional fluctuations are changing pattern. It's matching our frequency. Fleming's eyes widened as new data flooded her screens. This is incredible. It's not just matching us. It's engaging in a dialogue through dimensional harmonics. Each shift is a response to our last resonance pattern. It's like we're the first species it's met that isn't screaming at it, Sullivan finished. Nash leaned forward. Can you translate what it's saying? Not exactly, Fleming replied. But I'm getting impressions. It's ancient. It exists in the spaces between dimensions, the gaps in reality that the Arxins have been ripping open for millennia. Every time they forced their way through dimensional space, they were causing it pain. So this isn't an invasion, Nash realized. It's self-defense. More than that, Fleming continued, studying the patterns. It's trying to preserve the fundamental structure of reality itself. The Arxins' method of dimensional travel was creating microfractures in space-time. Given enough time, they could have caused a cascade failure that would have unraveled the entire universe. The entity shifted again, but this time its movements were different. Less hostile, more curious. A new pattern emerged in their sensors, more complex than before. It's offering us something, Sullivan announced, his voice filled with wonder. These patterns, they're not just communication, they're technology. It's showing us how to refine our dimensional drive design. Why would it help us? Patil asked. Because we showed it respect, Nash answered softly. Instead of trying to dominate dimensional space like the Arxins, we found a way to work in harmony with it. We proved we could be trusted with this knowledge. Fleming's console suddenly lit up with new data. Commander, these designs, they're beyond anything we could have developed on our own. With this technology, we could revolutionize dimensional travel without causing any damage to the fabric of reality. And the Arxins? Nash asked. As if in response, the entity's form shifted again. The destroyed Arxin ships reappeared, but their crystalline forms were different, modified, enhanced with the same principles of dimensional harmony that humanity had stumbled upon. It's giving them a second chance, Fleming breathed, showing them a better way. High Commander Ixel's voice came through their comms again, but this time without any trace of its former arrogance. Commander Nash, it seems we have much to learn from your perspective. Nash allowed herself a small smile. Yes, High Commander, I believe we do. Dr. Fleming, please transmit our dimensional harmonics data to the Arxian vessels. It's time we had a real cultural exchange. As the Starweaver's crew began sharing their discoveries with their former mockers, the entity gradually withdrew, its vast form folding back through dimensions in a way that no longer hurt to watch. It had come as a defender of reality itself, and found something unexpected. A young species that understood the importance of working with the universe rather than trying to dominate it. The very limitation the Arxins had mocked. Humanity's connection to physical form and linear spacetime had given them the perspective needed to solve this crisis. Sometimes, true advancement comes not from raw power, but from understanding one's place in the greater symphony of existence. Humanity's triumph. 3 months after the dimensional entity's intervention, Earth's Antarctic Research Facility had transformed into an unprecedented cooperative venture between humans and Arxins. The once arrogant crystalline beings now worked alongside their former primitives, their geometrically perfect forms sharing lab space with human scientists. Commander Victoria Nash stood in the newly expanded observation deck, watching as the first joint human-Arxin vessel took shape in the construction bay below. Unlike the purely crystalline ships of the Arxins or the metallic form of the Starweaver, this new vessel represented a perfect fusion of both approaches. Crystalline structures that flowed like liquid metal, designed to work in perfect harmony with the dimensional tides. Remarkable progress. High Commander Ixel's thoughts resonated gently in her mind. The Arxin leader had learned to modulate their telepathic communication to be less intrusive, another small but significant sign of how much had changed. In all our millennia of space travel, we never imagined dimensional transit could be so elegant. Sometimes the simplest solution is the hardest to see, Nash replied, watching as Dr. Fleming and a team of Arxian scientists made adjustments to the ship's dimensional resonance matrix, especially when you're convinced you already know all the answers. Our arrogance nearly destroyed reality itself. Ixal acknowledged, their crystalline form shimmering with what Nash had learned to recognize as embarrassment. We were so proud of our ability to force our way through dimensional barriers that we never stopped to consider the damage we were causing. Dr. Sullivan entered the observation deck, his face lit with excitement. Commander, High Commander, you need to see this. The latest test results from the harmonic drive are beyond anything we anticipated. They followed him to the main research lab, where Fleming was presenting data to a mixed team of human and Arxian scientists. The holographic displays showed waves of dimensional energy flowing smoothly around the test vessel, creating perfect resonance patterns that rippled through multiple planes of existence. By combining our understanding of dimensional intersection points with Arxian crystal technology, Fleming explained, we've achieved a dimensional transition efficiencies that neither of our species could have managed alone. The new drive uses less than 1% of the energy of traditional Arxian methods, with zero damage to the dimensional fabric. And the range? Ixal asked, their thought voice tinged with genuine curiosity rather than their former condescension. Theoretically unlimited, Sullivan responded. Since we're working with natural dimensional currents rather than fighting against them, we can maintain transit indefinitely. We've already mapped dimensional streams that could take us to galaxies the Arxians never reached. Lieutenant Patel, monitoring the long-range sensor array, suddenly called for attention. Commander, High Commander, we're detecting a dimensional signature matching our new harmonic frequency. Something's coming through. Everyone turned to the main view screen as space gently folded open like a blooming flower. A shimmering form emerged, one of the dimensional entities they had encountered 3 months ago, but smaller, more focused. Its impossible geometry no longer hurt to look at directly, now that they understood the principles behind its existence. It's transmitting, Patel announced. The pattern matches the educational protocols we received during first contact. The entity's dimensional shifting created harmonics that both human and Arxian sensors could now interpret. It was sharing knowledge, showing them new aspects of dimensional space they hadn't yet discovered, revealing layers of reality that even the Arxians, with all their millennia of space travel, had never imagined. It's not just teaching us about dimensional travel, Fleming breathed, studying the data. It's showing us how dimensions themselves are born, how reality maintains its own balance. This is the underlying structure of existence itself. Nash watched as human and Arxian scientists worked together, their former differences forgotten in their shared wonder at these new discoveries. The entity had chosen to return not because of the Arxians' advanced technology, but because humanity had shown a different way, a path of cooperation rather than domination. We're receiving more transmissions, Patel reported. Similar entities are appearing near other civilizations throughout the galaxy. They're sharing the same knowledge with everyone, creating a network of harmonious dimensional travel between all species. A gift, Ixal observed, but also a responsibility. Each species receiving this knowledge must prove they can use it wisely, work in harmony with dimensional space rather than trying to conquer it. That's why they came to us first, Nash realized. Not because we were the most advanced, but because we showed we could adapt, could see beyond our preconceptions. Our very primitive nature made us more open to new possibilities. The entity's form shifted in what they now recognized as approval. More data flowed through their sensors. Plans for technologies beyond anything either species had imagined, but all based on the same principle of working in harmony with the natural forces of reality rather than trying to overcome them. Commander, Fleming called from her station, these plans, they're not just for ships. The entity is showing us how to create stable dimensional bridges. permanent passages between star systems that work with the natural flow of spacetime. We could create a transportation network spanning the entire galaxy, using less energy than a single traditional Archean jump drive. The implications were staggering. The galaxy was about to enter a new age of exploration and cooperation, all because humanity's supposedly primitive perspective had shown there was a better way. The very qualities the Archeans had mocked. Humanity's physical form, their limited understanding, their need to work with natural laws rather than overcome them, had turned out to be their greatest strengths. High Commander, Nash turned to Ixal. I believe we have a lot of work ahead of us. The crystalline being's form resonated with agreement. Indeed, Commander. It seems we all have much to learn from each other. Shall we begin? As human and Archean scientists returned to their work, now joined by the dimensional entity's ongoing guidance, Nash reflected on how far they had come. The galaxy had changed forever, not through force or superior technology, but through understanding, adaptation, and respect for the fundamental nature of reality itself. The Archeans had called humanity primitive. Instead, they had proved to be pioneers, showing the way to a future where advancement came not from dominating nature, but from learning to dance with it. As she watched the impossible geometries of dimensional space ripple around their new joint vessel, Nash knew that this was just the beginning. The age of brute force dimensional travel was over. The era of harmony had begun.